So you've got your diagnosis, you've got the PTSD, you've got the trauma, you've got the ADHD, you've got the whatever, whatever, whatever. Or perhaps you're doing this on your own and you just figured out that you understand the idea of the unconscious. And what do I mean by the unconscious using terminology? I just mean that you become aware of psychological patterns within you that you were not aware of, that you were doing, and that you recognize immediately that it was dysfunctional and you were the one, I was the one that was responsible for it. And mine came in 2008. And these kind of things make an impression on you. And maybe you're there, maybe you're not there yet, but you're looking at it and you're looking for, because what we're trying to do is if it's dysfunctional psychology, we're just trying to make it functional. We're just trying to take the dysfunction out. So I had my first big revelation with the unconscious psychology that I recognized during a conversation that I was dreaming up expectations of the other person, and there were little stories that were going on in my head, and I recognized that I had been doing that for a long time, and it was kind of embarrassing when I first got to mine, and it's like humiliating. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had been doing that unknowingly all these years, but that unknowing was a major component of me accepting it. It was like, I didn't know. If I had known better, I would have done better, obviously. And so that helped me get through that. And then the cool thing was that I recognized and I got excited about the fact that the minute that I found another piece of unconscious thought patterns that were dysfunctional, that was creating something within my world that I wasn't wanting to create in my world. I got excited because the minute I knew better, I did better, and I would just adjust very quickly. And sometimes that meant making amends with somebody and saying, "Oh my gosh, I caught myself doing this," and we'll talk about that. But what this video is really about is talking about, like, how do we have the best perspective when we're looking at it? Because I recognize, just giving you that example of my example, that was very humiliating to me. And I recognize that I could have gone down a dark hole. I could have made things worse by getting mad at myself and then, just profusely apologizing to everybody. And that would have made it much more difficult. But just the recognition that I had that I was making the unconscious conscious, and that as soon as I knew better, I would do better. Like, it became such a quick response when I would find things and just go, oh, okay, I'm doing that. All right, that's cool. I'll move on to that thing. So let's just talk about, like, what does that look like? And I have kind of a visual, I'm a very visual kind of thinker. And so what is that? Let's just talking about my dysfunction that I found within me. They were thought patterns, and they were looping thought patterns because I thought that that's how reality was. I thought that's who I was. I thought that was part of my personality. And then I recognized, no, that's not it. So the way I look at dysfunctional psychology, I think of it like yarn. And if there's functional psychology, then that's just a string that we're following, a string of psychology that we're following along. But at some point, trauma, some kind of event in our life, the way we were raised, those kind of influences, if those had bent the way that I was seeing reality and experiencing reality, I think of those like what I'm finding is a big ball of yarn, just one of those. It's like if you're a fisherman, you've run into the big knots that you get in the reel. The reel overspins and you get these big knots. And then, I remember we stayed overnight on a pier one time, and I spent half of that time getting those spools out. So if we look at what's going on and we look at it, and if I capture that moment when I recognized that that I was in these thought loops, that I had this ball of thoughts that were just repeating themselves, and I was not aware of it. I was unconscious of it. I think of that like that's a ball of yarn, and I want to unpack that. And what I discovered was I unpacked that one very quickly, but then I discovered more. And then it was just like, how long does it take to get rid of these? And what we want is effortlessly. We just want to move. I mean, if we want to get through this thing and get into the functional aspect of ourselves, we want to do that. Well, let's look at when we find that ball of yarn. When I found that ball of yarn, before that, basically I had framed reality. That ball of thoughts, that tangled ball of thoughts had framed reality to what I believed reality to be. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, it's not reality. It's not that way. And what does that do? Well, that opens my framing of what is the hell is going on in here in the world. And I'm beginning to see the world from a broader perspective. And so what am I in that moment is I had framed like this, and I had developed a personality around my beliefs. And that was the gift I was sharing to the world that whole time, was sharing that personality that was actually dysfunctional. It was one of the parts of my personality that was dysfunctional. It wasn't helpful to what I wanted to find. So what I discovered was along my path getting there. So first of all, the minute that I have this aha, and then after that, now I'm framing reality this way. Well, what I was unconscious of was my personality was shifting, and I was changing along with that. And there was something that kept pushing me forward. And once you find the unconscious, I haven't found anybody that's found the unconscious and they say, I don't want to find the unconscious anymore. And the reason I believe this is when we figure that out, what we've really done is we understand the real world versus the bent reality that we can live in when we create these tangled thought loops that just continue to happen. And so after that, I couldn't articulate that back then, but I can articulate it now, many, 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 many years later, like 15 years later from that experience, is what I was looking for was real. And it was no longer being attracted to personality as much as being attracted to essence. And, then I went through these crazy changes in relationships. This was the relationships that I had already established, and these were the relationships that I was starting. And I couldn't articulate it in those moments, though I can recognize how I was trying to articulate to people I was getting to meet and the people that I was around, was that I want to know what's real. And, I actually started this thing that just came to me one day, truthing partnerships. And I asked somebody to be a truthing partner. And basically what I was saying is, do you just want to tell the truth to each other, even if it's uncomfortable? And so we can figure out what the hell's going on. And that was such a great tool for a very long time, and until it wasn't useful anymore. So my partner and I have been wading in this pool of this idea of relationships. And so when we look at relationships, they all kind of have they have a framework around them. We've got girlfriend, boyfriend, we've got fiancés, we've got parents, we've got siblings, we've got acquaintances, we've got friends, certain levels of friends. We have all of these kind of where do people fit? Well, if we look back at it, when I was in my my unconscious psychology, a lot of those kind of relationships, I can look back on them, they were built around an attraction to personality. But what was happening is my personality was changing as I was moving along in the world. So all of a sudden I'm becoming, or I'm acting different in the world to other people. To me, I'm just like, no, this is just my essence. This is who I am. And trying to explain that to people and get people to understand and these kind of things. And what I finally recognized is that it always has to come down to me. How do I look at everything? And I recognize that there was a lot of turbulence in my relationships because, well, first of all, I was trying to get people on board with this unconscious, making the unconscious conscious. And I recognize that trying to get somebody to understand that is not helpful, and in a way of trying to help somebody. That doesn't mean that everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm sharing with you is about bringing awareness to certain things. And maybe somebody will get that from watching this video. They'll just go, oh my God, yeah, I had this behavior and boom, that's great. But there's a difference between trying to help somebody. And that was what I was, I always kind of felt like I was a teacher. So I went out and did that. And then I got a lot of pushback from that and difficulties in relationships and that sort of thing. And then I recognized that I finally just had it. And I was like, I'm my essence. I am not my personality. I don't care if you're attracted to my personality. Well, I do want that in a way, but if you are only attracted to my personality, then I'm going to change, and my personality is most likely going to change. So looking at relating ships, we can consciously ask somebody to do the same thing like I did with the truthing partnerships. We can ask somebody to be in a relating ship, and really it's the core of a relating ship is about essence. It's about who we are rather than who we think we are. The personality, the identity that we mask ourselves with. And we can do that. And having the best point of view and the strongest point of view helps us to communicate that. This is what I'm up to. You want to go out with me? Well, you're going to have to, I might change. That's what's happening. I could recognize, I could keep changing. And guess what? If you're in my life, you're going to help me change. But the other point of view is that we can do when we recognize that it is 100% us. If we're on this path of finding essence, finding what's real, getting our psychology in order so that we're in harmony, we're in resonance, not dissonance with the world, it has to come from our knowing and that we can only change ourselves. We can't change other people because, that I've tried that method, and that method it brought me lots of other story loops, and I created more tanglings and that sort of thing. And the thing that I want is be happy, enjoy life, and get through it. So this idea of relationships is an ever evolving idea, and it's not personal. It's not meaning that it does originates, the idea of relationship does resonate or comes from this source, but this is going to change for everybody. You have to find out what the essence is. How do you want to explain this? How do you want to have a relationship with it? And that's the way that I looked at it after that was, I just had a relationship attitude that I'm going to be me, and there are people I'm going to need to talk to about this, like my partner. That's it. But we didn't know the language when we started. We both seemed to be really moving towards the same thing, yet we couldn't articulate it at the time. And so it took time, and we recognized how we shifted our perspective about staying loyal to ourselves, and then just giving each other really good feedback, which it's so weird to me that this seems like a completely new concept, that we would just offer good feedback to one another. But when we are hooked on personality and we are hooked on relationships, then we start to see it through, oh, I'm supposed to be a good boyfriend. What does a good boyfriend look like? And then we start bending reality, and in order to make a relationship between a boyfriend and a girlfriend work, instead of making a relationship that's based on what's real, the essence of what is each other. So this was just this video is coming to, as clarity keeps coming up on what this the ship thing and idea is. But this is there are so many. I recognize as I'm telling this, I could go off into a million different points of view and ways to look at it, which I'll probably do in upcoming videos. And I would love to hear from people. Like, what do you see? What's your personal relationship with something? And then let's look at it. That's what this channel is about, is trying to find the best point of view, the best way to look at something so that you have the most growth that you can possibly have in the least amount of time. Because that's really what we want, right? We want to be healthy. We want to be enjoying life. But the process of getting there sometimes feels like it's very difficult. And that is the point of Paradigm B, is we don't have to do it like the other paradigm does it. We don't have to do it the way that we're continuing to do it. We don't have to be in counseling for years and years and years and years and years. And I'm talking to a majority of people. Now, there could be people that need counseling all their life, and I'm not an expert on that. And that, because that's not my thing. I'm not interested in that. For the most part, typical psychology and shifting it is something that any individual can do. So anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and I hope this was helpful, fun, entertaining, new ideas.